Once again, here we are, American History Hybrid, Week 5. We're going to take a look at Kennedy and the Cold War, and we're going to look at the New Frontier and the Great Society of LBJ. This will be one of 2 parts of video notes this week. So first, we'll be looking at Kennedy's presidency and one of the major issues of Bay of Big Pigs. What you should be able to summarize after viewing this PowerPoint is President Kennedy's plan to stop the spread of communism, specifically talking about his flexible response foreign policy, explaining why the Bay of Pigs failure was a disaster moving forward with dealing with communism, and also describe how the Cuban Missile Crisis almost led to a nuclear war. First, the elections in 1960. Kennedy beats Richard Nixon in a race that really pitted 2 foes against one another on TV for the first time, where Kennedy looked calm, cool, and collect, and the opposite was said for Nixon, where he appeared nervous. LBJ was also the running mate of Kennedy, and Kennedy won the nomination. His flexible response in dealing with communism. It was an alternative to bloc communism, like was done with previous presidencies. He decided to create a specialized military force known as the Green Beret. He also decided to increase the threat of, or the strengthening of conventional military forces. He also increased aid programs for African nations, specifically 17 African nations increasing aid. He also brought about the Peace Corps. And lastly, he created alliances with Latin American countries. However, the last was a failure because of the corruption that was found with Latin American countries. However, the previous ones, Green Beret, aid programs, and Peace Corps, were seen as success stories. The Bay of Pigs, again, taking place on the island of Cuba, 90 miles off the coast of Florida, where it is a swampy land area, and the fighting is led by exiled Cubans. They were poorly trained by the U.S. and thus pitted to lead the overthrow of Fidel Castro. Again, Fidel Castro was nominated as the premier of a communist Cuba in 1959. However, it did not become communist right away. He was open to outside influences. However, he started to welcome the idea of communism because of the support the Soviet Union gave to his uprising and claiming the island of Cuba. Then we see the formation of ties between the two, and again increasing the nuclear arms anxiety amongst many Americans. In 1960, he gained control over American oil refineries and sugar mills. In 1959, the Central Intelligence Agency creates the plan to train these exiled troops, and the final plan comes out as the Bay of the Pigs. Again, it was to stop or thwart communist countries in close proximity to the United States. We also see the planning for the invasion, again, took preparation for 2 years. However, again, it was a very they were poorly trained, approximately 1,200 or 1,500 rebels. When the planning began, it was the infant stages were on Dwight D. Eisenhower's watch, and JFK inherited it from Dwight D. Eisenhower, and again, it was a failure. The actual invasion. Again, we see 1961, JFK approves the invasion of Cuba, and again, it's led by the exiles, and most of it is by Navy. And again, U.S. promised direct U.S. military action for anti-Castro Cubans. However, JFK did not send in reinforcements, specifically air reinforcement. the air coverage. The Cubans had B-26s. The Cubans also had planes called T-33s. Casualties. And again, the result of this war was two things. One, a stronger alliance between Cuba and the Soviet Union, and also a weak administration in the eyes of the Soviets, that being now President JFK. Again, you can learn further about the flexible response foreign policy by answering the following questions. And as always, make sure you review the learning outcomes at the beginning of the slideshow and make sure that you have solid understanding before beginning this week's activity.